Welcome back to the Other Side podcast. Today we're going to be focusing on urban legends and myths that have circulated about Red River Gorge in Kentucky. Turn down the lights, put on your comfy clothes and fluffy bunny slippers, grab some hot cocoa, and prepare to look at things from the other side. Red River Gorge is nestled in the heart of Kentucky. It is a natural wonder that beckons adventurers and nature enthusiasts alike. It's known for its rugged beauty, awe-inspiring landscapes, and the expansive gorge that has towering sandstone cliffs. Located within the Daniel Boone National Forest, Red River Gorge is a paradise for hikers, climbers, campers, and wildlife enthusiasts. Red River Gorge is more than just a picturesque location. It has a rich history and cultural significance within the Native American cultures that dates back thousands of years. It's dotted with the remnants of historic homesteads and the story of early pioneers. Red River Gorge also has a darker history. This history is full of spooky legends and myths and all kinds of paranormal activity. And that's what we're going to talk about today. One of the most chilling legends involves a group of devil worshippers who were said to have conducted dark rituals in the forest. The stories go that they would gather in the dead of night in the most secluded part of the woods and perform ceremonies that involved animal sacrifices and other ghastly acts. Those who stumbled upon their rituals claimed to have seen strange symbols etched into the ground and heard blood-curdling screams echoing throughout the trees. One woman who claims to have had a terrifying encounter with these devil worshippers is a woman named Sarah. She was walking alone in the woods, trying to escape the crowds and immerse herself in nature. As she walked, she noticed strange symbols etched in the ground and in the trees around her. Suddenly, she heard the sound of chanting coming from a clearing up ahead. Curiosity got the better of her, and she followed the sound to the clearing. There, she saw a large group of people in robes gathered around a fire. They were chanting in a language that she didn't recognize, and as she approached, they all turned and looked at her. Sarah froze in terror and saw that they were holding a struggling animal in their arms. With a knife raised up in the air, she realized she had walked in when they were about to sacrifice it. Sarah was lucky to escape with her life that day and never forgot the terrifying encounter. Running through the woods not knowing who's behind you or if you're being followed is a core memory at that. She looked into what she saw and later learned the symbols were associated with devil worship, and that area that she had been hiking was known as a site of occult activity. While Sarah's story is most likely fictional, it's a chilling reminder of the power of urban legends and that they spark our imaginations and haunt our thoughts. The stories of Red River Gorge may be nothing more than myths, but they can send shivers down our spine. Another spine-tingling tale involves the Gray Lady of Red River Gorge. The Gray Lady is a ghostly figure that is said to haunt the area around the Nada Tunnel. According to the legend, she was a woman who met a tragic end when she crashed her car in the tunnel, killing herself and her children. Now her ghost wanders the tunnel, searching for her lost children. Some people have reported seeing her ghostly figure in the fog that often surrounds the tunnel. One person who claims to have had a chilling encounter with the Gray Lady is a man named Jack. Jack was driving through the Nada Tunnel one night when he saw a figure emerge from the fog. At first, he thought it was just his imagination playing tricks on him, but as he got closer, he realized it was a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothing. As Jack drove closer, the woman disappeared into the fog. Jack stopped his car and got out to investigate, but there was no sign of the woman at all. Suddenly, he heard a soft voice whisper his name. Jack turned around, but he saw that there was nobody there. Disturbed, he quickly got back into his car and drove away. He was left with a feeling of unease that lingered long after the encounter. While Jack and Sarah's stories, again, are most likely fake, they remind us that urban legends and myths capture our imagination, and they promote the ideas of people in a place. If many people believe a place is haunted, as we discussed in the Slender Man Phenomenon podcast, it is possible for that phenomena that they believe in to manifest itself. The stories of Red River Gorge may be just that. They may just be stories, but they can stir up a sense of mystery and intrigue and possibly manifest themselves. One thing I know for sure is the following legend may not be fictional. There have been sightings of Bigfoot throughout Kentucky all throughout history. I was always told that Daniel Boone would verbally tell people about seeing a tall, hairy man. Many old-timers that I worked with at one of my first jobs, they've lived in the mountains of Appalachia for years. They would talk about the long, hairy monkey men that would walk through the woods and cross roads at night that they'd see. I grew up watching the Patterson-Gimlin footage and watching VHS copies of Harry and the Hendersons. Sasquatch or Bigfoot has been in popular culture for quite a while, and Bigfoot is said to inhabit densely forested areas around Red River Gorge, and the sightings of this creature have been reported by hikers, campers, locals, and even police officers. In one popular version of this legend, a group of hunters in the Red River Gorge area claimed to have seen a large, hairy bipedal creature in the woods. The beast was said to be around 8 feet tall and covered in red, matted fur. Its long arms swung as it walked. The hunters were reportedly so frightened by the encounter that they fled the area and never returned. Other stories claim that Bigfoot is a peaceful creature that lives in the woods and avoids contact with humans. The excellent paranormal researchers Greg and Dana Newkirk believe if you go out into the woods with the intention of catching a Bigfoot on film or catching a Bigfoot, doing something harmful to a Bigfoot, that whatever energy you're putting out, it can pick up on, and it will not manifest itself, it will not show itself. It's more of a synchronistic opportunity when you see these creatures. So that kind of makes sense. People like the Newkirks even believe that Bigfoot is a supernatural entity that can disappear into thin air or use mind control to manipulate people. While there's no concrete evidence to support the existence of Bigfoot, we don't have a corpse. We don't have a Bigfoot skeleton, but it fascinates people. This legend intrigues everyone, and everyone wants to catch a glimpse of him. On the topic of cryptids that could be at Red River Gorge besides Sasquatch, there's one story that truly terrifies me, and that's the story of the Gorge Crawler. I found this story many years ago, and honestly, it's terrified me. It is something that I wish I could go back and not read about it, because the idea that this thing could be real is absolutely terrifying. So this is a post that was originally posted into the Truth Is Here subreddit by a woman. I assume her Reddit username is KY Jackie. This is an amazing story. Okay, so I have no idea what exactly I saw that night. I've searched everywhere for sightings or even myths around the area of Red River Gorge, and I've found nothing. If anyone has any idea what we saw, or even if anyone has seen it, please let me know. My husband and I think it could be a Wendigo, but I don't know. I haven't heard anyone else say they've seen anything like it in Red River Gorge. I guess I want help figuring out what I saw and what to do. After the night I'm about to describe, I think we've had some close encounters with it since then. My friends and I go camping a lot, and my favorite place is Red River Gorge in Kentucky. We go there often, and since I was an infant, we've gone every year. I'm 28 now, married with kids, and I still go. It's the closest place to where I live that you can see the Milky Way pretty much every night. It's perfect for stargazing, and I've even seen shooting stars on every clear night I've been there. When we go without our kids, we like to night hike and find a good place to stargaze for hours. Our first experiences with night hiking, we would go to the trails we knew well and used frequently during the day. Ones with log fences and gazebos filled with resting places throughout the trail. The most used trail is the trail in Natural Bridge State Park that leads up to its namesake, the Natural Bridge. This trail is about 2 miles uphill depending on your starting point. I've done this trail every summer of my life, and I could probably do it blindfolded. It has wooden steps, carved rock steps, log handrails, and multiple sitting points under a roof. It has no lights at all. It's used pretty often, and while it's uphill, the difficulty is low. This is an easy trail. As long as you have good grip on your shoes and water with you, you'll be fine. My friends have done it with me multiple times and are confident that they could do it easily as well. Hiking this trail at night is not allowed, but it's the woods, and I've never really been one to care about closing times for the literal outside. When we use this main trail to hike to the top, we would park in the designated parking lot for the pool in Hoedown Island. You walk across the road that leads you to the pool, and you're at the first trail marker. You go up gravel for a while and pass the Natural Bridge State Park Lodge. There's a waterfall and some lights, so it's best to go fast and watch out for rangers that would tell you to leave. When you walk across the road, there's another mini shelter there to sit or a small rock wall to rest your legs on. Then, it's the beginning of the trail to the top. The night was weird to begin with. As soon as we started the hike, the clouds took over. It appeared like we'd be walking for nothing. You can't stargaze with all that cloud coverage, but we went anyway, just in case it cleared out by the time we finished our hike up there. In the beginning, it was just normal paranoia that we might get caught that kept us stressed and quiet. You'll know you reach the bottom of the bridge when you see a giant wall of limestone. During this time, there was a gazebo set to the right of this wall, and the trail continued and followed to the next wall, where you'd come at it from a fairly steep part of the trail. And the gazebo is welcomed. It's time to take a break once you reach it. My husband, my best friend at the time, and I go sit on the gazebo steps. We each have a bright LED headlamp and a handheld flashlight. We usually don't look at each other when we night hike because the lights are so bright that it's blinding. We sit like the Lord's Supper and walk in the straight line or staggered so we don't blind each other. It's after hours at this point. No ski lift rides have gone on for hours, and the rangers have already done their sweep and left. We left no time between them making sure the trail at the top was clear and us starting our hike. The ski lift takes you to the top, but there are workers that stay and do counts and only leave after it's clear. I guess I'm having to make these points because seemingly out of nowhere, a girl with a headlamp begins to walk down the trail we're looking at. She is in a sundress and flip-flops. The hike is uphill, and while it's fairly easy, it's not easy without water or real shoes. She'd have to have hiked up and down to this point with no food or water. Her light was bright, and when she reached where the trail turns in front of the gazebo down to where we came from, she stopped. She stood there straight, like Da Vinci's sketch of a person. She was looking directly at us, all sitting there. Her light made me bring my hand up and shield my eyes. She didn't turn away from our lights at all. She didn't even seem bothered that 6 LED lights were aimed directly at her face. I said, "Hello?" She paused for a moment, and very robotically, between every word she took a break, she said, "Oh, I'm fine." Then she stood there, still with her hands out to her side, facing us and staring almost through us. Her light made it impossible to see her face, and it was so bright I had to hold my hand up the entire time, until she awkwardly turned and walked slowly down the trail that we had just came to. She had got to the part in the trail where we saw her light just stay in one spot for a minute, and then she turned and the light faded out of sight. We wait a while before continuing up. We didn't want to deal with this weird girl again, and I kept making comments about how weird that was. And everyone else just made it out with me being afraid. But no one ever came after her. Was she hiking alone at night? Was she running away? And somehow, was she never found by a ranger with a bright light like that? We got up, and after a bit, we started back up to the top. It felt like it took much longer than it should have in the past, but we made it. There's stone steps named Fat Man's Squeeze that you get to at the top of the bridge, and you can walk across it and whatever. We made it to this landmark. Going up and being at the top, we could hear twigs snapping, almost alternating, from the left of us to the right of us. We ignore it. It was strange, but we were kind of exhausted, so we lay down and tried to stargaze, but the clouds were even thicker now, and it was miserably hot. On occasion, we could hear voices, and my husband kept checking for the people we heard, but we never saw anybody. We saw a light flash now and then, but never saw anybody attached to it. Then we heard a bird call, but it wasn't a real bird call. The noise alone convinced me that it wasn't a bird. It was as if somebody was impersonating. It was rhythmic, but not really natural, and I was convinced that we were not alone, and we hadn't been alone for a while. But I'm also the most easily spooked. I asked to leave as soon as they were ready, and they were ready right then and there. We were all scared, and the fact that they were just as afraid as me scared me even more. We began down the way we came, but it felt like it was taking much longer. We were going steady and quick, and it was downhill, so it's not like we weren't making ground. It's hard to explain, but at one point, we exclaimed out loud that it felt much longer, and everyone agreed. I kept looking behind me for the flashlight, and my husband kept looking out to the side to see if anyone else was there. We saw nothing. Now my friend kept watching in front of us. I kept feeling watched, and I couldn't figure out what footsteps were ours or if there was someone else. I would turn in the direction I would hear a noise and not see anything. When my husband was walking, he kept saying he was catching eyes in his flashlight, but usually you can catch raccoon eyes spying on you, or maybe he was afraid of a bear or a big dog, but we always attributed it to animals. He never got his lights on whatever the eyes belonged to, but we saw the reflection just long enough to see that they were animal-sized. Now, we're walking down a semi-flat area. Compared to the downhill hike we've been doing for the last bit, this was easy. There was a log fence or a handrail or whatever it's called on our right side, and we're walking in a line within reaching distance of the barrier. And my husband stops walking altogether and exclaims, "What's that?" But the question is more of an alert, and I move my hand lamp in that direction, and I don't see anything at first. Then both of his lights catch a shape, and then my headlamp catches it, and I move my hand lamp to the center. We all illuminate this creature, all 6 lights shining and reflecting off a light gray creature. It's bent in a crouching position, kneeling on its right leg, and then it starts turning toward us. It starts to slowly stand, and my mind is racing. It looks human, but it's just too big. People mistake human shapes for what are actually bears in the woods, but this is skinny. It's thin, but it's tall, and it's almost white that it's so light gray. Its skin resembles dolphin skin if I could compare it to anything. There's a shine to it, and our light's reflected in its little eyes. It gradually comes to a full standing position in front of us. Its head is long, and its eyes are in a human position on the face, in the front, not on the side like an animal. But I couldn't see any other facial features. Just big, empty holes or pits that were its eyes. It looked directly at us and our lights. The way it stood was intimidating. It's almost like when a snake raises up and it flexes their neck to show that they're stronger and smarter than their prey. It was like it was stepping up to fight. From crouching, then turning and standing in front of us. The arms hung down so low, and the hands too. Its hands had to be by its knees. I guess it stood 9 feet or so, and it was not that far in front of us. It had no hair at all, and its head was large. I couldn't process what I saw, and I was frozen. Just then, I hear my husband hitting me on the back yelling, "Run, run, run." I start to understand that we have to get away from this thing, and it pivots and runs to the right, going backward on the trail so it could get around the barrier and onto the trail behind us. We take off, running the rest of the way down the trail, knowing that this thing took off much faster than us, and after it had crossed behind the barrier, it would be gaining on us quick. We don't talk at all. The night is filled with our heavy breathing and our feet kicking up dirt. Because when we tried to say anything, it felt almost like the creature would know where we were. We keep running, but as we get into some areas that it's steep, it felt like we would never get out of the creature's sight. As we made it to the trail beginning with gravel, we could hear something to the side of us, crashing through the forest, snapping branches and breaking twigs along the way. That kicked us into overdrive. We ran until we got to the car, and we drove as fast as we could out of there down the main road, cops be damned. The only good part, as we're driving out of there, the sky finally cleared and you could see the fucking stars. Reflecting back now, when that thing looked at us, I knew it was smarter and faster than us. I knew that if we hadn't have seen it, it could have easily taken one of us and gotten away. I think the only reason it hesitated was because there were so many of us, and we stayed together. We made it back to where we were all staying. We took out our phone and wrote a note for what we saw. We hadn't spoken about it until we looked at each other's phones, and the stories were all the same. Without a doubt, what we had seen was real. We did not hallucinate. We did not have our mind playing tricks on us. We saw some creature in the forest. Was it connected to the girl in the dress and flip-flops who was hiking at night for no good reason? I don't know. But I hope I never see that creature again. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are still with me after that chilling story, those chilling tales from Red River Gorge, thank you. Please, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like it, subscribe, follow me, whatever platform you're on. If you would like to be connected more, maybe send me some suggestions. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. You can also follow us on Instagram at podcast TOS. That is T as in Tango, O as in Oscar, S as in Sam. Now, our Threads account is the same thing, at podcast TOS. Our Twitter is at The Other Side, Y as in Yankee, T as in Turbo. If you have any suggestions for what we should do in the future, please do not hesitate. Send me those suggestions. If you have a spooky story, feel free, message me on Twitter, message me on Threads. You can DM that to me. I would love to have interaction with this. I would love to make more episodes. I am trying to be more consistent. And I want to thank you all for the support I've gotten recently. And with that, thank you for tuning in to The Other Side. Join us next time as things will get spooky.